The designer of the Eiffel Tower had a hidden apartment built into the third level. This position, it's white to play and win. The pawns are going forward, but the winning move might surprise you. White to play and win. What do you think white should play? If you had a chance to look at that, the thing that we need to pay attention to, obviously, is that black has the bishop, which is kind of causing a problem for the pawns. And so the logical move in this position would be to move b5. This is the wrong move. And if you play this, you will not win. And here's what black is going to, and it looks obvious because you want to save your pawn. You also want to keep them pushing forward so that you can eventually threaten a queen, right, and win the game. Black's going to play king to d8, trying to get the king in front of the pawns, because then your task becomes that much more difficult if black's king is able to get there. So the logical move here from white is king to b7, cutting off the king, but still staying in a place where you can kind of support your pawns moving forward. So here black just plays king to d7, and they're kind of just waiting. They have this pawn stopped, and they're waiting to see what you're going to do. Remember, if you bring your king up here, it allows the black king to start coming in. The only real move here for white is b6, trying to push this pawn forward. Maybe you'll move your king over next and start trying to push it down the board, right? But here, black has a really nice move, bishop to a5, attacking your pawn. It doesn't really matter where you move. They're simply going to sacrifice the bishop and now play king to c8. And the problem for you is that you have a flank pawn. Now, flank pawns, so a pawns and h pawns, are the worst pawns when you're trying to win at the end of the game like this. The reason they're the worst pawns is because they're the easiest for your opponent to stop. So as an example, if you try to push this forward, black's going to simply get the king in front of the pawn, and you have no way to make it leave because when you push, there's nowhere for the king to go to. It's simply a stalemate because it's the edge of the board. Normally, if you imagine if it was, everything was slid over one, well, then the king would have a place to escape. But in this case, it can't. Okay, that's one problem. The other problem, you might say, well, why don't we go here, boxing the king out from getting to the corner? Well, here's another problem with the flank pawn. King just goes here, and because it's the edge of the board, our king is stuck. We can't move our king in this direction any further. It's just the edge of the board. So it doesn't really matter what we do. Black is always going to be able to stay here and either come across to the corner or just keep our king, boxed in, and we can't really ever get out. There's nothing we can do except we could get a stalemate if we push our pawn, right? That's it. So because of that, going all the way back to the beginning here, that is why at the very original position, playing the move b5 was the wrong move. Okay, that's not how you win. So for those of you who said a5, you would be correct. a5 is the winning move. And it's a counterintuitive move because we're giving up one of our pawns immediately. But the key thing to understand here is that if black tries to capture it, we're going to simply push, and we're threatening to simply push again and get a queen. And the only way black could stop us would be to go here, but we've got that controlled by our king. They don't have time to come back here and then try to get our pawn. They're too slow. And also the king is too far to get there as well. So because of that, even though it looks like we're leaving this pawn to be captured, that's not the case. Okay? So black instead plays king to d8 again, trying to blockade the pawns with the king. White to play and win. What's the winning move? Get a chance to look at that. The move is a6, and you have to be careful here because previously we wanted to box out the king. But in this case, now black will take that pawn, and when we try to push, guess what? We no longer have the square covered. They can stop us, and they're simply going to sacrifice their bishop, and we can't win. Okay, so that's why king to b7 doesn't work, and therefore a6 is the only winning move. And our threat is simple. We would like to simply push this and get a queen. So for example, if black were to play king here, we're going to just simply push. Black has no way to stop us from getting a queen. But instead, black plays the move bishop to f2, stopping the pawn this way. So again, it's white to play and win. What do you play now? Get a chance to look at that. The move is king to b7, and we did want to stop the king, but we had to wait because before, like I mentioned, black was going to take the pawn, but guess what? They can't take it now because the bishop has been moved. So now is the appropriate time to box out the king like we wanted to do before. Okay, so king to b7, and at this point, black has to essentially play the waiting game. King here, and they can't really do anything else. Okay, so it's our turn. What should we play to win the game? Got a chance to look at that. The move is b5, and at this point, it's simply a matter of pushing the pawns forward, and we're going to do it in a particular way, and it's a relatively easy win from white. So king here, white to play and win. What do you think the move is? You got a chance to look at that. The move is a7, and it forces the bishop to capture us. Otherwise, we get a queen. And notice how we've kept a better pawn. It's not a flank pawn. It's a center pawn, which is easier to promote. And in addition to that, we already have our king perfectly set up to escort the pawn. There's nothing that black can do. We simply push it. We get the queen, and we win. Okay? Now, you can also win this position, it's worth pointing out, by playing the move b6. And after captures, you take, because the king is not quite in time. You could play a7 and win that way. So really, either move in this position would be good enough to get the victory. All right, so congratulations if you saw that. Hopefully you learned something about king and pawn endgames, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.